Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Scariest thing that's ever happened to you?
B14. I love going on walks in the beautiful forest literally a few feet from our back door. I never think there could be anything slightly weird out there. One January morning, I decide to reverse my normal walking pattern. Starting on the opposite end of my very loose path, I'm meandering around, not a care in the dang old world. Wait, was that perfectly clear human footprints in the snow? I can see every goddamn toe. It's not some shitty Sasquatch prank. Not that any of the 3 other people in that area would do that. It's just a normal human foot. I follow it for a few seconds. It keeps going. I start to freak out when I realize that if someone set this up with their own feet, they would be risking serious damage from the sheer number of footprints. Fuck no. A trail of kids' footprints joins with the main trail. The kids can't be older than like 5. The 2 trails have footprints that are all tiny and pudgy. I keep following the trail, losing my shit. I reach areas where snow has been scraped away to reveal grass that I'm guessing body heat has melted all snow from. I decide that, nah, I don't really want to get jumped by some crazy naked hobo in my woods. I promptly went back to the house. I talk to my parents about it and show them the footprints. They're shitting themselves worse than me. I don't realize why at first. They remind me that they've thought they heard a kid crying in the night outside of the house twice. I sleep on the ground floor, with a window right over the head of my bed. Perfect for watching me sleep. The window points in the exact direction the footprints were found. Promptly, I couldn't sleep for the next year and a half. This shit still terrifies me. There's been a bunch of other weird shit on my road too. I think there has to be something genuinely off about the area. Too many stories to be anything normal. About a year after the footprints incident, I woke up around 3 a.m., groggy and confused by what woke me up. My window is open. The weather was nice outside, and I'd been leaving it open to try and convince myself I was safe. I noticed that it's awful quiet outside. The dogs aren't barking, so that couldn't have been it. I'm about to go back to sleep, getting cozy. There's something outside my window. I'd guess a ridge away, so around 500 yards, maybe less, screaming like a psycho. It wasn't a two-spook Sasquatch call or anything. It also wasn't a coyote, a cougar, a screech owl, or anything else I've ever heard in my years of listening to local wildlife. It sounds very human. The best description I can give is a schizophrenic retard trying to imitate a screamy Bigfoot-style monster call. I'm scared beyond shitless. I freeze up and listen. The scream is one long sound. It ends after about 8 seconds. I just sit there, listening for any more sound. Nothing for the rest of the night, which I spent in terrified silence after waking my parents up and searching in vain for a good explanation. That was genuinely pretty fucked up. This and the footprints are the only things that happened directly to me, except for something kinda weird that happened a few weeks ago. Just in case anyone wants to know the recent experience, I went back to my parents' place, same house still, a few weeks ago. I thought that since the weather was so nice, I'd take a couple hikes over the weekend. The first hike is really nice. I circle a main part of the valley by going on one of my old trails across 2 ridges. I notice one of the old skid trails I never really messed with is now marked by the state. I decide to head down and see if anything is being done down there. Now, this skid trail goes straight down into a side ravine that would take a very, very long time to crawl out of if you can't go back through the skid trail itself. I feel a little bit nervous since I've been talking with my parents and family, spooky bonfire style naturally, about the footprints and some of their older stories. I shrug it off. I'm having fun on this solo hike since it's so beautiful out. I don't want to have regrets about not exploring a little bit. I head down for maybe 600 yards, nearing the really hard-to-leave area. There's a nice pine forest to my right, so I'm feeling peaceful. There's this weird noise I've heard once but shrugged off. Now it seems closer. It's sort of a louder, lower-pitched bird squeal type thing. It's loud enough to hear pretty clearly when standing still. So I'm just standing, listening, not scared yet. Boom. I spin around. It sounds like someone silently cut down an old oak about 100 yards away, leaving only a really heavy impact sound. Nothing is to be seen, just the trail I've been walking. Okay, that was really weird. You'd think there would be some sign of a fallen tree. At this point, I'm really hoping that is what this is. Or something. I'm still standing still, listening for the weird sound. Now I'm nervous, trying to figure out what to do. The squeal sound again, a little bit closer. I have no idea what the hell it is. The boom sound happens again, twice in a row. This thing is now clearly right behind me on the opposite side of the pine forest. I'm about to freeze up from fear. It happens again, a little louder. I decide to run for it, bolting as fast I can back towards where I came, walking stick held like a club. Complete silence while I sprint, only my breathing to be heard. Everything is perfectly normal looking on the way back, absolutely nothing that could have made that sound. I don't stop until I get back on the main ridge. Complete silence the whole way home. I'm a pretty big skeptic and decided to just brush it off to me being really jumpy and getting too scared. So I went on another walk my second to last afternoon there. I'm taking a shorter version of the trail that stops on a ridge, directly in front of the ravine the skid trail led to. I'm enjoying the late winter breeze. I thought I heard a deer a few ridges away. So I sit down and wait to see if it comes. A few minutes pass. I'm enjoying myself and reaching too good tranquility. Boom. My alertness jumps from 1 to 10. It's much quieter this time, but it's definitely there. I try to reason this out. It has to be something understandable. Maybe I was imaging the speed last time, and it's logging a few ridges away. Boom, boom, boom. I don't think logging is that fast. I decided to happily go back to the house. Thankfully, the noises didn't get closer the second time. Otherwise, I'd have lost my shit.
Friend says there's a demon living in his basement. One day, we're hiding in the house because we just sprayed a wasp nest. Hey, Anon, want to see where the demon lives? Lol. Okay. He has a hook lock on the unnaturally narrow door. He turns on the light. There are rickety-ass stairs facing away from the center of the basement with no backing between the steps for maximum spooks. I begin to comment on that. A wasp flies up my shirt. I panic and dance my happy ass across the living room while shaking my shirt because I'm not getting stung. My friend is looking at me like, "What the fuck, bro?" I realize I didn't feel or hear any damn bug after I reacted. Nothing is on the ground or flying. Then who was Wasp? And that's the story of how I killed a wasp nest. There was also that one time I had sleep paralysis, but it was pretty tame. I'm dozing on my bed. I'm vaguely aware of a feminine voice whispering something while pacing the length of my bed. The voice gets next to my head again and goes quiet. The sudden absence of sound makes me realize that there was a voice at all. As soon as I understand this, my head explodes with multiple voices simultaneously whispering and yelling in tongues from inside my brain. I freak out because now I'm schizophrenic, and fuck that. I'm fighting to wake up or move, but I can't. After like 3 seconds, I jerk awake, and the voices stop. I realize what happened, roll over, and go back to sleep.
My mom and 2 of her siblings decide to go on a bike ride on what was once the main road. Totally normal fun stuff. Nothing to worry about. They get all the way to the end of the drivable portion and are just playing around. Across the creek that ends the road, there's a big opening full of chest-high grass and the huge hollow stump of a tree near the center. A couple of old beagles are circling the tree, barking like they have a raccoon or something cornered. She and her siblings have heard this before, so they're not really concerned. All of a sudden, they hear what she describes as a pig meets an ape, screaming its head off. To their mixed surprise and horror, it sounds like it's coming out of the hollow tree. The dog's barking turns into yelping, then one goes silent. They got on their bikes and pedaled like crazy. The road's about a 4-minute ride back to the main road. Around 1.5 minutes into their ride, which is slower than they'd like because one of them is getting something like a panic attack, they hear the scream sound again, much, much closer. As they near the end of the road, she and the others hear it getting closer and closer, until at one point she looks back and sees a thick underbrush area being shaken like crazy. They just manage to get back on the main road before it reaches them. They're a lot faster now since they're no longer on gravel. They get home safely and do the right thing by telling their parents what the hell just happened. Their dad, my grandfather, is huge on hunting and general outdoorsmanship. He tells them that he'll go down there and see what they're talking about. He's really gruff. Basically told them they're lying and or idiots. He comes back and tells them to never go down that road again without him or their mom. He tells them he found some stuff, scat, and what he thought was part of a deer, that is like nothing he's ever seen. To this day, my mom gets nervous whenever we're near that old road. She calls it Monster Road like some goddamn 80s film character. Now, interestingly enough, her other siblings involved with that went back when they were in their late 20s and set up something simultaneously brilliant and dangerous. So, 2 of the kids involved, now adults, and some friends go back and decide to camp. They have the brilliant idea to buy a portable battery-powered CD player and make a CD full of dead silence and terrifying animal calls and realistic monster sound effects, so that one of them can scare their friends by placing the player in the woods, going out to piss, turning the player on, and then coming back to camp. The CD had a buffer of like 20 minutes of silence so that there would be no suspicion it was them. They wait until nightfall and start the process. All goes according to plan. Their friends are terrified and beg to leave. The brave siblings say it's just some coyote. The tape finishes. The friends don't understand why they're not leaving their tent to its fate and saving their own lives by running the thousands of yards between them and the car. 50 minutes later, after they're done with their joke, they didn't explain it but admitted they giggled a few times. And everyone is calmed down. There's an inhuman screech. It was so loud, but with so much reverb, that they thought it had to be a good many ridges away. They say it sounded like a hyena with the bass of a bear roar. This was not on the CD. They're trying to figure out what to do. It calls again, much closer, much louder, much angrier. They grab their flashlights, abandon their stuff, and make a run for it. This thing is still roaring and screeching at most a few minutes away from them. They make it back to the car and promptly fuck off back to their parents' house and crash in the living room. Ever since, they've joined my mom in the let's not go there with anything less than several 12-gauge shotguns group.
Need to go to my brother's house. It's just after midnight, but he only lives 2 streets away. I tell my mother I won't be long. I come out of my gate and cross the road. I notice a woman walking slowly down the street. She stops and starts staring at me. Completely blatant. Just staring and moving her head to follow me as I walk past. What the fuck? I get around the corner and realize I've forgotten my phone. I turn back to get it. I get halfway down the street, and this woman is in my garden, staring through my living room window with her hands cupped on the window, like when you look through a window into a dark room and try to block the external light. The living room light is on. The curtains and blinds are closed anyway. What is she doing? I duck behind a car to keep an eye on her to see what she does. She walks slowly to the gate. She stares directly at where I am, but there's no way she can see me. She starts walking slowly down the street. She goes around the corner, and I've never seen her since. Fucking lunatic. I've still got no idea who she was or what she wanted.
I've had a few minor spooky incidents, but there were only a few that have really stuck with me. B-me, B8. Papa, my grandfather, takes me on my first fishing trip. Childhood awe commences. But you're gonna fish like a real man. We going catfishing. At night. That's when they come out to bite real good. You'll catch a big one tonight. All my what.jpg. He drags me to the middle of nowhere on an old back road that was closed off years ago, but nobody gives a shit 'cause rednecks. We hop out and duck under 10 yards of brambles and kudzu to come up on a big river. We set up camp and set out 3 poles. We only got a cheap crank lantern, samishes, some bait, and his old cowboy shooter. He's a big Western fan. In case of cottonmouths or snapper turtles, was his reasoning. The sun falls. Nothing but bream, froglets, and skeeters. I hear a car pull up back on the road. Shit, stay here, Anon. He goes up the path back to the car. A fucked up, violent gurgling comes up from the river, like a gator gargling pepper water. Little me is scared shitless. I try not to panic. I sang some song from the Wiggles to calm down. It starts up again. It sounds like something's wading up to the shore. I grab the lantern and wave it over to see what's up. It winds down, then it's off, so I'm alone in darkness. Nope, nope, nope. I'll never fish again. The gargling splash is right by the water's edge near me. My screams brought my papa and that cop over so fast. I just lost it and held on to him, begging to go home. We got packed up with the cop's help. He came by our truck thinking someone was broken down on the road, and my grandfather was chatting away about the poor fishing. I tried to explain what happened to him. Guess the river didn't want us fishing this late. I went back to that same spot last year. Turns out we were set up right next to a natural spring. The spring was releasing air pockets that were pretty spooky at night. Mystery solved. I got 2 more if anybody's interested. Not as long, though. Years later, I moved downstate to Valdosta, a fairly rural town near the Florida border. Thick-ass swamps. Everyone owns lots of guns 'cause Georgia law. High school and college football are fanatically worshipped. My mother's boyfriend is nice and cool. He takes me on a hunting trip because I wanted to try it. He organizes a trip to his father's property, who owns a big plot of pasture for beef cattle. He was having serious issues with wild hogs harassing the calves and wanted them gone. This gonna be good.jpg. It's me, him, his brother, their father, and 3 hunting pointers. The plan was to wait by the tree line for them to wander out to some bait stands and gun 'em. Once we downed the boars, we'd go after the sows and kin. Hogs are horrible. They eat everything, devastate the environment as an invasive species, and breed like bunnies. It's cruel but necessary, plus the bacon is heavenly. We set up blinds in the brush by the cattle paddock, farthest from the woods to avoid our scent from spooking them. We fill the stands with sour mash and fresh corn. Immediately, we see raccoons peek out from the trees. Don't worry, Anon. When the coons come out, the hogs are sure to follow. They're smart like that. We head back to the stands and wait. Now we wait for them to grub around. They wait with their guns as I play with the puppies. So it begins .gif. So while we were waiting for the hogs to come out for their last meal, the old man, as his sons called him, explained the plan to me, taking the time to detail some things so I wouldn't be completely clueless. 1. Hogs often follow raccoons for plentiful food. They don't bother each other too much. 2. The 2 older dogs were experienced bayhounds. They corner and scare the hogs so we can finish them. The younger pupper was being trained, and this was his first real hunt. I recall the oldest being called Mo. The others weren't named as it would make them too attachable. 3. Once the boars were down, I was to go with the brother and trail behind the others. They would follow the dogs in turn. 4. If I saw anything that looked sketchy, I was to run back to the blind. We ain't gonna get you mauled by no bacon. When the men worked in the field, the hogs would come by and try to get at them. They had scratched a divot by the fence and were not afraid to crawl in while the men were about. Chances are they'd buck up and charge us as soon as we got in their sight. Back to our scheduled programming. Lots of grunting, trotting, and chattering from the stands. The dogs are getting restless. The guys are picking their shots. As soon as that coon moves to the left, 5 loud pops in quick succession. I peek up to see what's up, reeling from the sudden gunfire I'll never be used to. 2 big hogs lying on their sides, maybe 5 smaller hogs, and a bunch of little ones hauling ass in a fan pattern. Shit! I brushed the last one off his shoulder. That'll make him easier to track down. Let's go, Anon. We file out and head to the slaughter. It doesn't shock me as bad as I thought it would. No twitching, no real gore, or too much blood. It was more interesting than shocking. On second thought, that's how serial killers are made. Them coons are pissed we upset their meal. I look up and see a dozen beady eyes set in black masks in the trees. Nature's ninjas.
This was about 2 months ago. I had been experimenting with essential oils. Most of you here probably don't know what that is, but in short, it's oils extracted from plants, bark. I'm sure you've heard of frankincense. There's one in particular called cedarwood I was taking at the time. So one night or early morning, I rub this shit into my temples and go to bed. Skip forward. It's 5-something in the morning, and I'm still awake watching the end of a movie. I hear something scratch. Then something hits the floor. I think nothing of it, figuring it's a roach or some random shit I'm too tired to prove. A full 30 seconds or so, I can't put it out of my mind for some reason. So I look on the floor. It's a paper sucker stick. Okay. So a roach or something pushed the sucker stick off the box. Take note that this is a flat surface. The stick did not roll. It was scooted, forward, not sideways. So I put it back on the box. Whatever. Back to the movie. I hear a small scrape. I look. It's the stick. It's slowly scooting, by itself, and softly gets flicked onto the floor. What the actual fuck did I just see? What the fuck? I stared. In a semi-catatonic state, I picked the stick up and put it on the box. 2 seconds later, it scooted once more, scratching on the box. I bolted. I paced, thinking. The more I thought about it, the creepier it became. I must have been pale, but I decided to go back and record with my smartphone. I went back to the room, slowly coming in. There, the stick was on the floor. I put it back on the box and stayed for a few minutes, but nothing happened. Needless to say, it was one of the most frightening and unexplainable things I've ever seen. I felt that some entity wanted to play a game or something. Later on, I looked more into cedar wood and found that it's largely known for opening the pineal gland, used by Native American tribes in rituals, etc. Never fucking again.
For over a year, the veterinary clinic I worked for was terrorized by a drug gang trying to break in and get drugs like ketamine. Someone who worked for the practice or was a delivery driver was in on it with them. They always attempted robberies when the vet who lived behind the clinic was going out of town, or when there were just women working there. They got pissed because repeated attempts resulted in nothing. My boss would troll them with dummy narcotics boxes and filling labeled narcotics with plain saline. They stole at least 2 dummy boxes. It all culminated after the last dummy box theft, with them completely trashing the practice and killing animals that were boarding there that night. I've never been followed in my car until that incident. Terrifying. They tried to run me off the road. Probably the worst experience of my life.
I was staying home alone at my parents' house, taking care of the place, making sure thieves wouldn't steal everything. My work shift ended at 23:30, which gave me enough time to get home and catch an episode of South Park while I prepared something to eat, then go to sleep. This was a regular occurrence, and for the most part, since I grew up in rural areas of my country, I'm not afraid of the darkness or weird sounds and whatnot. This night, however, after my South Park routine and dinner, I turned off the TV and left the remote controller on the sofa, its buttons facing down into its leather cushions. This is crucial to the story because, as you know, the rubber buttons stick nicely to the leather, preventing it from falling off. As I'm walking towards my room, I hear that obvious remote control falling to the ground dot wave sound, and I turn back. I turn on the living room lights and see the remote on the floor in front of the sofa. At this point, I didn't really mind much, so I put it back up, face down on the leather as always, and went to sleep. The next day, after the same routine, I get that feeling that I should be careful with the remote, so I'm 100% aware of it. I stick the remote between the cushions of the leather sofa. This, of course, makes it impossible for it to just fall off. As I'm walking towards my room, I heard the same dot wave as before, but this time louder. I get goosebumps all the time just from remembering because there was no way it could have fallen off. I did not go back. I went straight to my room, turned on all the lights, and started texting my buddy who lived nearby about what had happened. The next morning, I found the remote not in front of the sofa, as it would have been if it had fallen, but behind it and thrown under the dinner table. Whatever took the remote from the sofa actually threw it over the sofa and far into the living room, batteries all over the place, etc. I had another encounter with this type of thing sometime after. The setting of this story is somewhere in the rainforest jungles of Central America. My family has a tradition for hunting, and we own a huge plot of jungle land just for this purpose. The way it works is that we spread ourselves around a valley, climb a tall tree, and tie a hammock up there to avoid the animals from smelling us easily. The dogs then dig out the game, and via radio, we talk to each other if it's coming our way. That night, we're all silent and just listening to the dogs near the creek that flows through that small valley. Suddenly, they stop barking, and we all hear a metallic sound, similar to a machine that compresses metal or a Transformers robot shifting. It caught everybody's attention because we are really far away into the jungle, and it's at least 2 a.m. On the radios, we told each other, "Did you guys hear that?" And the guy who runs behind the dogs says, "Yeah, I heard it, and the dogs are spooked. We better get out of here." You know these dogs are badass. They don't fear anything out there, so when they're spooked, it's always a good idea to GTFO. We started doing just that, but as I was climbing down, I felt a strong breeze over the trees and a bright light following the trace of the creek in the valley. I shit you not, it was most definitely a UFO, but just a bright white light. My uncle started whispering in the radio, "Guys, hurry up, we need to get the fuck out of here. Are you seeing that light?" Of course, I was shitting my pants, as everybody else. I left my hammock up there and just went down in jumps. I met my oldest uncle running towards me, and we headed up to the small house we have a few kilometers away. We always remember that and agree that it was a UFO.
Be 13 or 14 or something. Live near the woods. Go through a phase with a couple of friends where we were into aliens and stuff. It was the early era of the internet. My friend's older brother would go on the internet and download spooky material on aliens, encounters, types of aliens, etc., and give it to us. Naturally, a sort of auto-suggestion started taking place within the group. We start investigating the woods nearby regularly. One day during winter, we check a new part of the woods near sunset. We find an interesting set of tracks and start following them. Eventually, we get to a very dark and dense part of the woods with a steep downhill bit. We decide to venture down. It's already almost dark. After about 2 minutes of descending, we hear bushes moving fast nearby. Auto-suggestion kicks in heavily. We think it's aliens. We run away like hell uphill, screaming and gasping, trying to get over the downhill bit. Even after that bit, we keep running as fast as we can, thinking gray aliens were chasing us. We get back to civilization and decide to go home. We never venture in those woods ever again. In hindsight, it was probably a stray dog or maybe a boar. But still, back then, I almost had a stroke. Shit was scary.
Getting gas around 2 a.m. A random guy walks up behind me while I'm pumping gas. I turn around and ask if I can help him with something. He just stared at me right in the face and said my full name calmly. I said, "Yeah, that's me. Can I help you?" His expression never changed from a blank stare, and he said, "No." Kind of freaked out, I finished up and went in the store to pay. I went back out to my car, and the man was still standing there, looking off into the distance with an almost robotic gaze. I got into my car and took off. I never saw the guy again.
Walking past one of my college classroom buildings on the way back to my dorm at night. There is a pair of vending machines right next to the main door, and I'm thirsty as hell, so I tug on the handle, expecting it not to budge. It's about 4 hours after the building closes. It opens, I walk in and get my drink. I hear music coming from the second floor. It sounds a bit familiar, but too muffled to recognize. I decided to head up. The song ends as soon as I reach the top of the stairs, starting a new one. It's Mr. Bad Guy by Freddie Mercury. I notice a shadow moving down the hall as it begins. Let's go chasing rainbows in the sky. A figure emerges from the dark end of the corridor, moving unnaturally. It's my invitation. A short old woman with blue-gray hair wearing an old Walkman sort of device does some sort of marching aerobics routine with a small purple dumbbell in each hand. I'm Mr. Bad Guy! I look into her beady black eyes and see nothing. She looks like she has something to prove. I feel something shoot down my spine and my heart rate surges. I've never had my fight or flight mechanism triggered like this before. I'm Mr. Bad Guy. They're all afraid of me. I bolt right and down an adjacent hall, fleeing down a parallel set of stairs back to the first floor. Running back to the exit, the music echoing from near the first staircase has gotten louder. I run outside and don't stop until the building is out of my line of sight. Gasping, I realize how ridiculous the whole thing was. I have not yet known a greater fear than that night, and not for a lack of trying.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel, as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.